Maybe not. Maybe not. Except Kenza. Okay. 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 So thank you very much to the Minister for coming today, and to Gina Wilson. Thank you very much. The Leader of the Government in the House of Commons announced that on Thursday, March 22nd of 2018, there was a final allotted day in the current period. So when we're looking at these estimates, this means that supplementary estimates for 2017-18 votes and interim estimates for 2018-19 votes were deemed to be reported to the House yesterday. So just to let you know, today although it would be great if we vote, these votes do not mean anything because we're already past the deadline. So today is more about information. The committee should not adopt nor report on the votes. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, we are studying the subject matter of the supplementary estimates under the Office of the Coordinator Status of Women and the subject matter of the interim estimates for 2018-19. Vote 1 and 5, or 1 and vote 5 under the Office of the Coordinator Status of Women. For this reason, we are pleased to have the Honourable Marianne Monsef, Minister of Status of Women. She is joined by Gina Wilson, the Deputy Minister, and Annick Lapointe, hello, Lapointe, Chief Financial Officer and Director. With that, I would like to turn the floor over to Ms. Monsef for your opening statement. You have... Did you prepare for 10 or 7? We should ask. You prepare. We'll give you exactly 10 minutes, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge we are on traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin peoples, and as always, it's a privilege to be with your committee today. And Gina Wilson, my Deputy Minister, and as you mentioned, our CFO, Annick Lapointe, have joined me. I would like to welcome Stephanie to the committee. I'm looking forward to our collaboration, and of course, thank Martin for all his contributions to gender equality, and all members of this committee for your continued efforts to advance gender equality, in particular your studies on women's economic security and the study on Indigenous women in the justice system. We are looking forward to reviewing and addressing to the best extent we can your recommendations. As Minister for Women, I'm proud of the accomplishments we've been able to make and the progress that's been made over the last 4 months since I appeared before this committee. A lot has happened. We introduced the first federal gender budget with a recognition that when we invest in women, we grow the economy for everyone. Canada's taken on the G7 presidency chair, and we're prioritizing gender equality to make it a theme of the presidency. We've updated the terms and conditions for women's program funding to give more flexibility to funded organizations and initiatives and to strengthen the support for sustainability of the women's movement. We've launched a successful gender-based violence strategy, Call for Concepts. That's $20 million for projects up to 5 years. On Women's Day, of course, I announced $858,000 in funding to Global Compact Network Canada for a project that will engage the private sector to eliminate barriers facing women in the workplace. There's also been, as we know, women rising around the world in our communities across Canada. With the Me Too movement, with the Time's Up movements, we've seen, along with the global marches, a need and a momentum to seize and to build upon. And I know that our work, for example, through the G7, the investments we are making in women's organizations are just one way that we can together build on the momentum and move the work of gender equality forward. And of course, we've just returned from a successful few days at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York City. Of course, we were proud to share the significant steps that Canada's made, but also learn about the innovative measures that other countries are taking. And many thanks to colleagues across party lines who joined us in New York City. It was quite exceptional to see Team Canada in such full force in attendance. So last June, informed by this committee's work, I announced the first ever federal strategy to address and prevent gender-based violence, $100.9 million over 5 years, with an additional $20.7 million per year was invested in this. As part of this strategy, Status of Women Canada has been coordinating the whole of government approach to the development and sharing of research and data to inform actions, but also to achieve concrete, measurable results. The $20 million that was announced in January to address and prevent gender-based violence, particularly for underserved and undersupported gender-based violence survivors, has been an important step. Over the next year, we intend to build on the momentum created by the activism that's been seen across the country and demonstrate how feminism can be a positive force for social progress and change. And as you know, the new budget announced an additional $86 million over 5 years starting in 2019 to support further the implementation of the gender-based violence strategy in areas such as teen dating violence, online child sexual exploitation, and harassment in post-secondary institutions. To make gender equality a reality, those of us in decision-making positions must listen, learn, and ultimately lead with our words and our action, which is why the government's also established an agenda internationally to further prioritize gender equality. In November 2017, I represented Canada at the first ever G7 Gender Equality Ministerial in Taormina, Italy. The progress there has created momentum to help Canada put equality at the center of its G7 agenda throughout the presidency year. And earlier this month, you may recall, there was an announcement for the Gender Equality Advisory Council for the presidency, co-chaired by Melinda Gates and Isabelle Hudon. The Equality Council is essentially mandated to support leaders and ministers to ensure that gender equality and the intersectional gendered lens we apply across government is integrated across all themes, activities, and outcomes of Canada's G7 presidency. And I'm thrilled to be serving as a liaison between the Gender Equality Council, the G7 Sherpa, and the Prime Minister. Our government believes in supporting initiatives that will have a long-lasting impact for all women, which is why we've changed the way Status of Women Canada does business. We've restored funding eligibility for advocacy activities and introduced measures to ensure the sustainability of the women's movement, including expanding eligibility to recipients such as labor unions, provinces, territories, educational institutions, think tanks, municipalities, allowing a longer term and higher value funding opportunities. That's up to $2 million per year over up to 5 years, and by enabling operational and capacity funding to increase sector capacity through skills development and community engagement, just to name some examples. In 2018 and 19, so moving forward, the Women's Program, the envelope that supports women's organizations, will fund projects that remove persistent barriers to women participating fully in economic, social, and democratic life in Canada. So let's talk about the budget. Budget 2018 cements a whole of government approach to gender equality. Not only was GBA Plus applied to all measures introduced, the budget also introduced a gender results framework to guide the budget measure, to guide the plan, to measure the impacts of the investments, and to frankly ensure accountability across government. The government, we will be introducing new GBA Plus legislation to enshrine gender budgeting in the federal government's financial and budgetary processes, and to extend the reach of GBA Plus to also include tax expenditures, federal transfers, and other government spending. This will be integral to ensuring that when we make decisions about budgets, we help reduce the potential negative impacts for women, gender diverse persons, and other groups. For Status of Women Canada, the new budget means $100 million over 5 years to support women's organizations. That's a doubling of investment in these vital organizations. A commitment to introduce legislation to formalize the role of Status of Women Canada, making Status of Women Canada an official department. A mandate for Status of Women Canada to engage in a national conversation on gender equality with young Canadians, and of course, an engagement strategy for how men and boys can be part of gender equality in Canada. There are also other measures in Budget 2018, new parental sharing benefit, women entrepreneurship strategies, increasing the number of women in trades, support for Indigenous women in the workplace, a commitment for proactive pay equity legislation, and just to name a few, I'm happy to talk to you about those today. But most importantly, I look forward to the ongoing collaboration that we are all a part of to advance gender equality. And of course, Madam Chair, I'm happy to take any questions that our colleagues may have around Supplementary Estimate C and the interim estimates.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Minister Monsef, you were 45 minutes short, so we could have just keep on talking. Seconds. No, it's okay. Well, no. See, Bernadette, keep me in line, okay? Anyway, so thank you very much. What we're going to do is we're going to go around. Just to advise you, Minister, because we have the votes tonight, we have done a unanimous consent to keep the meeting going until 5:25. There have also been, we have a phone number here that Transport would actually pick us up unless we want to run across.
Okay.
But we do have a special bus coming if we need that as well as an
That's
option
good to
for
know.
us.
We can
Okay?
carpool.
Yeah, so that needs. So we're going to start off with Emanuela Lampropoulos for your 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Monsef, Minister Monsef, for being here with us today and to answer questions on the budget. So first of all, I'd like to know and to hear a bit more about how we're going to be engaging men and boys in order to help gender equality, in order to bring us at an equal playing field.
Thank you for your question. Me know that men and boys want to be part of the conversation and that, frankly, we can't do this work without them. And that's why the new budget, there was an investment of $1.8 million over 2 years to begin to develop that conversation across the country, but also to develop that strategy. We know from women's organizations that there's a lot of expertise in the feminist movements to be leveraged. We're going to ensure to do that. We're going to ensure that we are not taking funding away from women's organizations to engage men and boys. As someone who's been part of the feminist movement, working with grassroots organizations, I've definitely heard loud and clear how important it is to do that. And I know parliamentarians like our parliamentary secretary, Terry Duguid, have a lot of ability and capacity to lead this work. And I'm very much looking forward to do this. If and when we get this right, Canada will be the first to have a strategy of its kind.
Thank you very much. Also, obviously, another issue that we have is that not enough women are in leadership positions and we're not equally represented in high-paying fields. So what are strategies that this budget is going to help with when it comes to getting more women in leadership positions?
That's a great question. Part of it is, of course, looking around corporate boards when 1 in 5 seats, only 1 in 5 are filled by women. In a country like Canada, we have a problem, and we're working to address that. Bill C-25, which is in the Senate right now, adopts a comply or explain approach. With that, in the new budget, there is an opportunity to incentivize and to recognize those corporations that are doing well around gender and overall diversity in their corporations. On Women's Day, I also announced $858,000 in funding for the Global Compact, which is an arm of the UN. They'll be working with some 20 champions in the private sector who are demonstrating this kind of leadership, folks like IKEA, for example. And they'll be working on determining a blueprint, essentially, for what are the barriers for ensuring greater diversity in workplaces and how can the private sector be a part of this work. In terms of representation of women in underrepresented fields, so science, trades, technology, engineering, mathematics, there's funding in the budget to address that. So up to $6,000 in grants for those women studying trades to be able to pay for equipment, for example. That's one barrier removed to get them to high wage fields. But we also know that pre-apprenticeship training is important. Getting that interest early on will be critical. And then $1.65 billion in a women entrepreneurship strategy. When women are able to determine their destinies, create jobs for others, it's better for everyone. And so these are just some of the ways that we're working to address some of those contributors to the wage gap.
Awesome. And lastly, if I have time. Okay, perfect. So I was really happy to represent Canada with the Canadian delegation at the UN last week. And one of the side events that I had gone to, which was co-hosted by Canada, or if not hosted fully by Canada, Violence Knows No Borders. And I have a riding where there are a lot of immigrants in my riding, and not all of them are very aware of, their rights and as Canadians, eventually when they get their Canadian citizenship, and even as permanent residents. And so I was wondering what we're doing in order to tackle gender-based violence. I know that we've already done quite a bit, but is there anything new in the budget that's going to help with that?
So another excellent question, Emanuela, and thank you for being there at the UN. Again, having a solid Team Canada approach was really important. There are a few measures we're taking, recognizing that gender-based violence does not discriminate with cultures. It's a reality across institutions, workplaces, cultures, everywhere. We also recognize that some groups are more vulnerable. So the much discussed citizenship guide is in the process of being reformed, not to just talk about what can't be done, but also to inform newcomers to Canada about their rights and also their responsibilities. So we're working with stakeholders in the feminist community and, of course, colleagues in Citizenship and Immigration Canada to ensure that it can be a teaching tool to provide newcomers to Canada and their educators an opportunity to better understand this great country that they've come to. There is funding, of course, for it's about $20 million over 3 years, over 5 years. Thank you for that. To protect vulnerable women and girls. This is about funding to welcome an extra 1,000 refugees. There's money set aside in the gender-based violence strategy. So the $20 million that I announced in January focused on underrepresented, underserved groups like Indigenous organizations and groups, but also immigrant women and girls, and ensuring that those organizations have the funding and supports they need to serve these communities is going to be essential. But as you've seen through your work with the economic security of women and girls, it's not just about addressing violence. Economic security is an important way to prevent violence and the cycle of abuse that can hold women and other gender diverse peoples back. And so that's part of the solution, but we also need to ensure that women are doing well economically, which is why the budget was so important. When you focus on women's economic well-being, we grow the economy for everyone and make them less vulnerable.
Thank you very much.
And I think my DM would like to add something to this.
We're at our time, so we'll just continue with that. I'm going to move over to Stephanie Kusi for her 7 minutes.
Bonjour, Madame Ministre. Ça me fait toujours un plaisir de...
Good afternoon, Madam Minister. I'm always pleased to see you here this afternoon.
Based budget. A recent article in the Toronto Star by Jennifer Wells indicated that Australia had abandoned this gender-based budgeting. Austria had implemented the gender-based budgeting, and unfortunately it was met with ill-defined objectives, a lack of oversight, poor interministerial coordination, and a lack of gender-related data. Further, only half of 12 OECD countries could point to specific examples where the gender budgeting tool had brought about significant changes in policy design and or outcomes. Why do you expect the outcomes for Canada to be so much better?
That's an excellent question. And of course, in developing our approach, we've been looking at other countries and finding ways to determine what they do best and replicating and learning from those challenges. So the foundation to effective gender budgeting, as you've mentioned, is good quality data. That's the biggest limit, and that's an area that we have to continue to build upon, which is why, in addition to committing to legislate GBA+, there's been significant acknowledgement from provinces, territories, women's groups, and our government that we need to invest in good quality data. We're doing that. Part of the OECD reference that you made, we've actually been working with the OECD to not just help us do gender budgeting well, but to help us with our GBA Plus process as a whole, which is another reason why we were able to introduce Canada's first gender budget. Another thing that Canada is doing differently, and it's more challenging, but it's really important for a country as diverse as Canada, is the fact that our gender budget isn't just the gendered budget. The plus is there too. It's an intersectional gendered lens, which is going to make a significant difference. Legislating GBA Plus ensures that there's more accountability. There will be public reporting, of course, to Parliament, but also to the public as a part of it, ensuring that Status of Women Canada has the ability to monitor the quality of GBA Plus that leads to an effective gender budget is going to be critical to our success. And this is just our first year doing it. We know that there will be opportunities to improve it, but I can't overemphasize two things. One, the importance of reliable, valid, intersectional, gender disaggregated data. And two, the importance of fostering a culture and a workplace that ensures that, every decision that cabinet makes has that intersectional gendered lens applied before we get to the budget making process that the finance minister and the prime minister are part of.
I'm very glad to hear you're working with the OECD countries to see the ones which have been in the top 6, how they have found success. But I am very curious and interested in regards to the specifics of the data and analysis, which you mentioned repeatedly. So I was wondering if you could please give me 3 examples of analytics that will be used in the gender results framework to measure process, such as benchmarking, standard deviation analysis, or multi-regressional analysis. What data tools specifically will show us that this is succeeding? What numbers will show us that this is succeeding, please, Minister?
You're talking to the data geek in me. So yes, absolutely, I would love to. So the government's current and future budgets will be guided by a new gender results framework. It will be divided into 6 pillars. The first will be around education and skills development. The second is economic participation and prosperity. The third is around leadership and democratic participation. The fourth, which we've been talking about a lot lately, is gender-based violence and access to justice. 5 is around poverty reduction, health and well-being, and gender equality around the world. This analysis is robust, but it will be enhanced by new investments in data, and this will be in partnership with Statistics Canada. This will be in partnerships with community-based research on the ground across the country. And in terms of concrete examples of what this actually looks like from the policy to the implementation. The National Housing Strategy, over the next 10 years, some $40 billion will be invested in the National Housing Strategy. Women's groups work really hard, as you've done with the work around this committee, to ensure that housing and that connection with women is made, so at least 25% of that will directly support women and their families. Now, who's going to be building these houses? Who's going to be benefiting from these good quality jobs over the next 10 years? And we know that less than 5% of women are in construction, as electricians, as carpenters. And so recognizing that and mitigating for it means that in the 2018 budget, there's new money to support women entering these fields so that they can benefit from this significant investment. So this is just one of the ways where an exciting for us policy tool ultimately leads to better outcomes. And if we keep doing this and applying this rigor, we're going to make sure that at the end of the day, Canadians feel the impact, and they feel the impact of better investments in women and girls leads to a stronger economy for everyone.
Thank you, Minister. Well, I certainly hear many excellent themes and initiatives. I think Canadians would be comforted if they had more confidence and understanding in regards to the actual data analysis that will take place and the methods that will include. I guess I'll conclude by asking, you mentioned a lot about intersectionality. How do you define that, please, Minister?
Thank you. The results.ca website is an opportunity for Canadians. It's been up already, but it will be an ongoing process of updating it so that Canadians are aware. And of course, we're also building a knowledge center of the information and data we're keeping. And through Statistics Canada, much of this knowledge will be available to the public. Intersectionality is a recognition that, beyond our gender identities, there are other realities that we identify with that can affect our day-to-day realities. So age, race, whether we live in rural or remote communities or urban centers, indigeneity, migration status, those with disabilities and
Minister.
exceptionalities.
Thank you, Minister. We're
LGBTQ2.
gonna move on to Sheila, just because time is so.
Sure. We can
okay.
talk about this later.
Sheila, you've got your 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. Really good to be with the Canadian delegation at the United Nations last week. We heard some devastating presentations. One that I think particularly affected a lot of us, which we've been hearing testimony at this committee, is about the experience of Indigenous women in the justice system and incarceration. And one of the very strong messages we've heard at committee, and it was certainly echoed at the United Nations Convention on Status of Women last week, is the problem of solitary confinement. And here's one quote that we got from Native Women's Association of Canada here in the room. That NWAC calls for a complete end to the practice of solitary confinement by any name and for any duration. They say segregation is a particularly cruel practice for women with histories of trauma and abuse, another area in which Indigenous women are overrepresented. So I, with a lot of people, was devastated that the federal government decided to file an appeal of the BC Civil Liberties Association WIM on ending indefinite solitary confinement. And I'd like to hear you from your heart tell us how you feel to have our government spend our tax dollars fighting this really cruel and terrible practice. This is the appeal filing.
Thank you for your question, Sheila. And of course, it's always good to have you at international and domestic fora representing so well. On the issue of the significant overrepresentation of Indigenous women in the justice system, I think the percentage is 38%, 36%. That's significant given that they make up about 2% of the population. Your report is going to be incredibly appreciated and help inform the aspects of the justice system that need to be addressed. Overall, we acknowledge that the system as a whole has failed a lot of people, including Black Canadians and Indigenous people in Canada, and Indigenous women.
Minister, I'm sorry, with respect, it's about the appeal of the solitary confinement ruling. How do you feel about that?
I won't comment on ongoing court cases, but you asked from the heart, Sheila. I can tell you that one of the reasons I'm here is because I know that as a settler to this country, having been here for 22 years, I have more opportunities and privileges afforded to me than many people whose land we're on. And that's a wrong that I have an opportunity to right, and we all do. And you've heard the Prime Minister say it, there's no relationship more important, and it's a shared commitment by individuals in government, but also by the government as a whole.
Yeah, with respect, it's just very hard to square that with appealing some really progressive decisions of our courts. So I'll leave that with you. We also heard at convention, and I know that you have met with some of these amazing women, Persons Against Non-State Torture, who have been fighting for 20 years from the East Coast of trying to get a non-state torture named as a distinct form of gender-based violence. Non-state torture is when someone is tortured, but it's not by a police officer or a in a prisoner of war situation. We, Parliamentary Secretary Duguid and I saw just a terrible, a wonderfully told but terrible movie on prostitution young girls leading into anyway, just terrible family circumstances. And we know that there's a parliamentary committee studying this right now, human trafficking. Are you going to include non-state torture as a distinct form of gender-based violence in the strategy work that you're doing? You would be fulfilling some of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. You'd be working with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights if you were to do so.
Thanks, Sheila. I don't have an answer to your question, but I have met with organizations who are doing this work across the country, and they've helped inform the gender-based violence strategy. Their recommendations around ensuring that their organizations are able to support these individuals who are finally able to come and seek the help that they need has been instrumental for us, and we'll be continuing to support them.
Great, thank you. Glad to hear you talking about operational funding, about women's organizations. I'm still not clear on whether it's funding that will help these organizations keep the lights on and keep their operations staff. Can you give us just a couple of sentences of assurance on that?
So we're changing the way we do business, and part of it is consistently across the country. I have heard the same thing from organizations in rural communities to urban communities, that the way we fund them, as much as they appreciate the dollars, could be done better. The simplicity of the process, the longevity of the funding, the amount that we fund them for, the reasons we fund them for. So we're in the process of turning that ship around by ensuring that instead of 1 or 2 year funding, they receive up to 5 years. So they have the predictability. Operational funding, as you know, in that recent GBV call for proposals in January was included as something that is eligible. We're also working with provinces and territories. We met for our FPT for the first time since I took this role in Toronto. We'll be meeting again in the Yukon in the fall. And we talked about co-funding these organizations so that we're able to make better use of the dollars and better target our investments to ultimately support them so that they can take care of and advocate for the people who are counting on them. So we are looking at doing things differently, but also working with other entities that fund these organizations like provinces, territories, unions, and so on.
My time is short, so I would love if you were willing to file with the committee a little bit more of an explanation about how the operational funding side's going to work, because it's been hard for us to track. And I know you and the finance minister are proud of the gender budget. As you know, I still have some big pieces that are missing. But in order to expand on this, Chair, if I can move my motion, thank you. I would like the committee to invite the finance minister, Bill Morneau, to come to the committee to explain the effects of the budget on women and girls. And I've got a motion that was distributed. I move that the committee invite the Minister of Finance, the Honourable Bill Morneau, at the earliest opportunity to explain the effect of Budget 2018 on women and girls, and that this meeting be televised.
Excellent idea, for what it's worth, from over here.
Any discussion along this motion? Seeing no debate, can we just go to, are we able to vote on this motion now? Okay. All those in favor to invite Mr. Morneau to Status of Women in camera? All those not in favor?
Because it was voted down last year, so good.
Camera?
That's progress.
Sorry, just to clarify, I know I'm not on this committee, but is he going to be in camera or televised?
It would be televised.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chair.
So that you're more than welcome.
He
So
wanted
I-
to come to the UN, so he wasn't
Okay.
able to. for
So
various
what we're going to do now is the motion's being cleared. Your time, you only had 12 seconds left. The motion's cleared, so we're going to get back onto business. Correct? We're good? We're good to move forward. Marc Sauret, you have your 7 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je vais également
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to share my time with my colleague, Mr. Fraser. Madam Minister, thank you very much for the comments you have made, your enthusiasm for the session you had at the UN. I also had the opportunity to participate in several sessions, and I've heard that Canada is seen as a leader on the world stage, and that message was really well received. So before asking my first question, I'd ask Ms. Wilson what comment you wished to make earlier, if You wanted to say something? You may answer. Well, the only thing I wanted to add was that there's a little bit of piece.
which is actually there to fund settlement operations, particularly for those women who are experiencing violence. Alors, c'est tout que je vais ajouter.
Merci.
That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Girls in rural. We know that obviously in Canada, and for me in my riding and many of our ridings across the country, rural services for women and girls is very important. So I just wanted to get your perspective and what has Budget 2018 has done to really focus and a lot we've learned from the UN too at the same time, but to really put in some really focus on rural women and girls.
Thank you, Mark, and so great to have you there as a demonstration of how men are already part of the conversation to advance gender equality, along with Terry. So yes, we were at the UN with a lot of pride around the progress that's been made in Canada to put gender equality at the heart of what we do, including our budget. But we also went there with some humility, and I'll get to that later because we know other countries have a lot to teach us in our work. Rural women and girls' realities is also important to me as an MP. I represent a mixed rural-urban riding. And I heard in Peterborough Kawartha leading up to the UN for women in my riding, issues around transportation in rural communities are key issues, and the lack of access to rural broadband is a key concern, not just for security and safety reasons, but as an economic barrier. I also heard that, Curve Lake First Nation is in my riding too, that the realities for Indigenous women and girls in rural and remote communities is distinct from that of settlers, and so that needs to be kept in mind, and that there's opportunity to promote women through entrepreneurship, through access to capital for those who are in agriculture, and so important to tell the stories of great women in rural communities who are holding them together and also building a better Canada as they have for decades. So what does that mean in our work as a government? The investments in infrastructure, $186 billion, is nothing to laugh at. There's money for transportation for smaller communities. $2 billion has been set aside thanks to advocacy by rural members. $500 million set aside for rural broadband, and this is going to be an important economic driver for all Canadians, not just those in rural communities. For access to farm credit, there's more money now available to those women through Budget 2018 who are interested in pursuing work in agriculture, and of course $1.65 billion for the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. For Status of Women Canada, we know that organizations in rural communities are often playing multiple roles. They're not just the Rape Crisis Center, they're also doing immigration settlement work, they're also doing youth support, they're also providing employment advice, and they need more attention. And so we heard that loud and clear. Since 2015, 97 projects have been funded related to rural women and girls for a total of $29.5 million. That means that 60% of the $48 million we've already spent on women's organizations are directly related to rural women. But our work isn't done. We have a lot of work left to do, and I sincerely hope that one of the outcomes is a follow-up to our joint trip to the United Nations is, okay, so we all just went and we all just heard everything that we did. How are we going to do differently so that that issue around rural women and girls empowerment stays at the forefront of this committee's work? And of course, as we continue to apply that intersectional gender lens to our policies, we continue to elevate that moving forward.
Thank you so much for your commitment, and I'll pass it on to Mr. Fraser for the last 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Minister, for being here with us today. And I'd like to just touch on a few themes that you started to raise, but perhaps allow you to elaborate a little more. First, one of the barriers to economic success that we've heard a great deal about during our study on the subject at this committee has been, as you reference, a lack of access to capital for women entrepreneurs. It was astonishing to me how difficult it was for women in business to get the seed funding they needed to get businesses off the ground, to scale up and to thrive. I'm curious what plans we have in place to ensure that women have better access and equal access to financing so they can contribute to the economy to the same degree that men can and experience all the benefits that come with it.
Sorry, what? 55 seconds. Okay. Access to money through EDC and BDC and regional development agencies will allow women entrepreneurs to start up, to grow, and also through the new trade agreements we're signing, there's new investments in the budget to help them find access to greater markets. We know that they need to come together as an entrepreneurship community, and so there's money set aside for a conference for that. There's also a recognition that boot camp and mentorship and all these other opportunities are critical to their success so that we can ensure that they continue to create jobs, and a lower tax for them starting this year and a further 1% next year to 9% will help ensure that women entrepreneurs continue to contribute to the economy in Canada, but also serve the international community with their goods and services.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And now, just looking at the time, we have time for Rachel Harder for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Minister, your government recently announced a policy to welcome members of ISIS to return back to Canada and find refuge here. Despite the fact that these ISIS terrorists have not renounced their acts of genocide, torture, or terrorism, the Prime Minister said that these ISIS members would be, and I quote, an extremely powerful voice for preventing radicalization in future generations and young people within our community, end quote. Meanwhile, Ralph Goodale, the public safety minister, said that, and I quote again, once a person has been in a war zone, once they've been actively engaged in terrorist-related activities, the capacity to turn them around is pretty remote, end quote. Minister, as the Minister for Status of Women, I'm wondering with which framework you agree. Do you agree with the public safety minister that the ISIS terrorists returning to Canada are a threat? Or do you believe that the Prime Minister is correct in saying that these terrorists who are returning to Canada are in fact a strong voice that could empower young Canadians?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. I thank you for it. I think we can all agree that the safety of Canadians is all of our number one priority. No one in this room, indeed no one in the Parliament of Canada supports terrorism, and we will continue to be committed to that work. We also heard today in question period from the Minister of Public Safety that over the decade that the Conservatives were in power, there was a significant cut to public safety of Canada and their ability to deport those who should not be in the country. Significant investments are being made to ensure that the right approach around restorative justice is taken.
Minister, with all due respect,
that we keep our communities safe.
It didn't answer my question, and we certainly did a great deal as a government, and we certainly did not bring ISIS terrorists back into Canada and claim to reintegrate them and use them as a great voice on behalf of young Canadians. Now, I've had the opportunity to visit refugee camps in northern Iraq and Jordan, which is a part of the world where many of these ISIS terrorists are active. And I've talked with women and girls who have actually faced incredible atrocities at the hands of these men. Many women and girls who were victims of the brutal atrocities that were committed by them now call Canada home. We've welcomed them and provided a place of safety, or at least that would be my intent if I was in government. Now, I'm deeply concerned about how these survivors are coping with the fact that the same country that they now call home is serving as a place of refuge for the men who actually brutalized them. Now, in your opening remarks, you said that it's important, and I quote, that we extend GBA Plus to all areas, end quote. Now, Minister, my question for you is very simple, and that is, was GBA Plus applied to the decision to welcome ISIS fighters back into Canada and to use them as a voice in order to influence young Canadians from coast to coast? And if the analysis was in fact done, then my question for you, on behalf of all Canadians, and in particular on behalf of these women and girls who have been brutalized by these men, sorry, are you smirking at that? That I'm speaking out on behalf of these women and girls? Okay. My question for you is this. Did the analysis account for the trauma and the fear that this decision has caused these women and girls who have fled from Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and other countries across the Middle East where these ISIS fighters were active?
Okay, Madam Chair. De-radicalization is an important effort that our government will continue to be committed to because safer communities are better for all Canadians. Welcoming those who have escaped oppression and war, like those that Rachel mentioned, is and has been from the very beginning an important part of our government's efforts, whether it's been the welcoming and ensuring the settlement of Syrian refugees from places like Jordan and Lebanon, or the welcoming of those Yazidi women and girls into our communities. These are all examples of our commitment to ensuring that those who face oppression find a safe home here in Canada. And we are also working to reduce the violence that happens internationally.
Miriam, I think it's clear that GBA Plus was not in fact utilized. You've made that very clear in your non-answer. And so, Minister, in order to get to the bottom of this, I do believe that further study is required, and therefore I am going to move my motion. Okay. So I would like to move the motion as reads. That pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study on the Government of Canada's decision to welcome ISIS fighters back to Canada, the trauma and stress this decision caused the women and girl refugees from Syria and Iraq who have settled in Canada, and the gender-based analysis that was used to support this decision. That the committee study this for 4 meetings and that these meetings occur before June of 2018, that the committee report its findings with recommendations to the House, and that the government provide a response to the recommendations made by the committee.
Okay, so that motion, I believe, had already been, I'm sorry, I'm just going to check with 1 second. That motion had already been provided to us previously.
That is correct.
Correct? Yes. Okay. So the motion now takes precedence over the Q&As. So debate, what's that? We're going to debate on this motion. Rachel, you've got the floor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, as members of Parliament and as leaders in our country, as champions of women's rights, advocating for the most vulnerable among us, including specifically these women and girls who have faced these brutal atrocities at the face of these men whom this government is welcoming into our country, it is incumbent upon this committee to study this issue and to understand whether or not proper analysis actually was done to ensure that these women and girls are properly being protected and that their needs are taken into account by this government. I'm done.
You're done. Okay. Comments for debate? Comments or questions on this? Go ahead, Sheila.
I'm sympathetic to the safety need. However, we've already had our debate as a committee about what it is we're going to be studying next. The Conservatives chose not to file any suggestions for study by the deadline, and I feel that as a committee we've already made commitments that take us right up to the end of June and actually into September and October this year. So I will not be supporting the motion.
Okay, Ms. Harder.
I would just like to point out, it's interesting to me because the deadline that Ms. Malcolmson refers to was actually a deadline that was just self-imposed upon this committee. There is no such thing as a deadline. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as a deadline. We are welcome to bring forward motions at any point in time.
That's correct.
In fact, that is the purpose of this committee, is to find those issues that matter most to Canadian women. And if we restrict ourselves to a deadline, then what we're saying is that we're actually more concerned about our needs and our timeline than we are about the benefits of the women needed for the women across this country, the needs of the women across this country. And so, sorry, but with all due respect, there is no deadline, and I certainly have the freedom, I would hope anyways, to bring forward a motion and to gain the respectful support of this committee. But more importantly, this motion is about these women and girls who live in this country who have found refuge here. And I have sat with these women and these girls, and I have listened to their stories, and I have seen the scars upon their bodies. And they deserve this committee to look into this and to understand what the repercussions are of bringing these ISIS terrorists back into Canada.
As the chair, I just want to bring forward clarification as well. There is not actually a deadline. The deadline that was imposed by the chair was for the fact that in previous we've had up to 30 motions, and we were just trying to be most efficient, recognizing that there needed to be a third study. So that is why this deadline is actually an asterisk, because it's called a Karen Vecchio deadline. It's not something that's real. And that was for the Ms. Damoff, please.
So in terms of the next study that we're doing, we did make a decision to do that. In terms of the returning ISIS fighters, that's something that's been going on long before we came to office. And I have the floor right now. Thank you, Ms. Harder. So that is something that was happening under previous governments. I certainly don't see any urgency to be studying this. I think what we're doing right now as the Status of Women Committee is something that's important, and I also think we have to be mindful of the time here, Chair.
Yep, absolutely. Ms. Harder?
I just would like to correct the record, since this meeting is being televised, and Ms. Damoff just said that the previous government started this initiative. That's certainly not the case, and I welcome the Canadian public to look into that. In fact, we have taken a direct stance against terrorism, and we would never sign off on allowing ISIS terrorists back into this country and to somehow reintegrate them, and according to the Prime Minister, use them as an effective voice on behalf of young Canadians in order to help this country. To suggest something like that is absolutely horrendous. At the end of the day, I'm not interested in engaging in petty remarks with you. I am interested, however, in studying the implications of this decision by the Liberal government and how drastically it will impact the lives of these women and the trauma and the fear that they have already undergone.
Ms. Damoff?
Just quickly, as a member of the Public Safety Committee and as a proud member of this government and the very strong stand that we've taken against terrorism, I just want to make sure that that as well is on the record, and that's all I've got to say.
With no further comment, I see that Ms. Jordan has recommended it's a good idea to vote. So is this just a regular vote? Okay, pardon me? Recorded, okay. I would prefer a recorded vote. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at both of you going, what are we doing? Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we will be having recorded vote. Okay.
Ms. Damoff?
No.
Mr. Fraser? No. Ms. Jordan? Ms. Lambropoulos? No. Ms. Nassif? Monsieur Serré? No. Ms. Harder?
Yes.
Ms. Kuzi? Yes. Ms. Malcolmson?
Okay, so the motion has been defeated. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the time. I was going to call you, I'm sorry. Ms. Monsef. I'll keep on calling you Minister Monsef. Thank you very, very much for your time today. I recognize that Pam had some more questions, but maybe you can have a tete-a-tete after that. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you to Ms. Lapointe and Ms. Wilson for joining us as well. Today's meeting is adjourned Thursday at 3:30.